everybody. Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, where three writers who always deliver the happily ever afters offer questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Avery Flynn.
I'm Roan Parrish.
And I'm Zio Axelrod. We've got a great show for you today with the amazing Christopher Rice is with us. Yay! Welcome, Christopher.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you here. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you write and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm a Pisces, and
like long walks on the beach.
I used to be blonde, but age has taken that away. No, it's great to be here with you, lovely people. I am a writer. I've published thrillers as Christopher Rice for years, but I started writing male romance as C. Travis Rice a few months ago. Feels like years ago, but a few months ago, and the second book in the Sapphire Cove series, Sapphire Spring, which is right here, should be out, I think, by the time you're listening to this or reading this. It has the lighter blue cover of the two for our audio-only podcast listeners. And so I'm excited to give questionable advice. I've been waiting for weeks to come on and join you all in this noble endeavor.
Well,
I just finished Sapphire Spring, and it's amazing. Both books are amazing, but yeah, so if you guys haven't checked out Sapphire Sunset, definitely get on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we are super excited to have you. We have a letter today that I picked because it very much reminds me of my mother. I love you, Mom. But who, God, please never listen to this podcast, Mom. Ever. So here we go. So this is from Am I the Asshole? But there was no way I could not pick this letter. It combines my two favorite things, parents who drive you insane and weddings. So, it's the perfect combination.
Two least favorite things.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So it is, am I the asshole for tricking my parents into being on time for my wedding? My male 33 parents are late for everything, like everything. Both of my sisters and myself have been disappointed so many times. Graduation ceremonies, birthday parties, even my father's retirement dinner. It is completely my mother's fault. She is a wonderful mother, and I love her dearly. She just does not understand the concept of punctuality. I have seen her talking to her sister on the phone and reminded her she needed to be at my baby sister's dance recital. She waved me off and arrived after my sister had danced.
Oh, no.
We are all used to it. My dad is just done trying to get her to be on time for anything. My now wife, female 28, told me in no uncertain terms that if my mother was late to our wedding, she would do terrible things to me. She was only half joking, but she was a witness to my mom and dad arriving halfway through my cousin's quinceañera. So here's what I did. This is so brilliant, you guys. So here's what I did. It is completely on me. My wife was not involved. If there is a dick move, it was totally mine. When we were getting samples for the wedding, I talked to the printer and had one special invitation printed with the time on it stated as being 1 hour earlier than the actual start time of the ceremony. I know, don't you love this?
Brilliant.
My mother was beside herself, apparently, when they left the house and thought they were going to miss the wedding, since she was part of it, with her and my mother-in-law lighting the candles we would use to light the unity candle and stuff. When she arrived and noticed other people were also just arriving and parking, she was so relieved that we were starting late, and she just went with it. The ceremony went off beautifully, and so did the wedding pictures and the reception. My problem came last Sunday. My parents came over for a big family dinner, and we didn't bother starting the grill until they showed up. She asked why everyone wasn't eating, and we just said we knew they would be waiting for them since they're always late. She said that she was not always late and had been on time for my wedding. She hadn't been. They arrived 45 minutes after the time on their invitation.
Wow.
My idiot cousin John, real name because it's common and he deserves people to know he is adult, snorted at her statement. A few other people giggled or smiled at this, and she picked up on it and asked what was so funny. I came clean and told her about the special invitation. She is pissed at me for not trusting her and making her look foolish in front of everyone. if my cousin had just controlled himself, she never would have known. Am I the asshole? And here's my second favorite part of this is the edit. Part of the reason she is mad is because she had her invitation framed. To be honest, I was already planning a heist with my sisters to replace it with the real one in case she ever noticed the discrepancy between hers and the one we have framed in our home.
Okay, if any of us had written this into a book,
Uh-huh.
our editor would be like, this is a little bit too far-fetched.
I love this. Oh my God. I had a friend in college and I love you, Diane. We told Diane like 45 minutes early for like everything. Like we just straight up lied to her.
Like that.
Oh, yeah, we
constantly.
do this with my dad all the time. My dad is perpetually late for. He was late to my wedding. They were late to my wedding, so yeah, I can relate to that.
But I think some of this is how late. The detail I got stuck on is 45 minutes. That's like missed it, like that's like what's going on? What's the secret life that this mother is leading? Who is she seeing in the corridors of her life, the shadows of her life? We only have 20 minutes.
Every time for everything.
I know, for everything.
Yeah.
So I guess the am I the asshole thing is what, if anything, should he be doing to with his mom about this? And then, what advice do you give to people who are stuck with those folks who are just repeat issue, constantly late, or are always, saying the wrong thing? Or what do you do? How do you approach something like this when it's so ingrained in somebody?
This is such an elaborate solution here. Like, I'm just in awe.
And the heist.
That everyone was able to keep it a secret until cousin John opened his mouth after the fact.
Well, also, let's be fair to dolty cousin John. John snickered, but it was the letter writer's decision to decide to tell the mom. He could have just made up a completely other story. Like, everyone knows if someone is not able to keep it together, Saturday Night Lifestyle, and they laugh at something, you have to just make up a joke and be like, oh my God, right? It's like the time we pantsed so-and-so, and then you just move on. You just don't even let it happen. So like, I'm not blaming John.
Yeah.
Or John snorting cocaine again before lunch. Listen, he's got the sniffles. There goes $5. You just complete the shock effect, like just distract.
Yes.
My advice is it's time for a real conversation with this mom. Like I think that the solution that they came up with was a very expensive one. Like, printing a separate invitation is not going to be cheap. But I think all of that sounds like it was about avoiding really giving the mom an opportunity to see how her behavior is really affecting people. Because that's, and it sounds like she's not really willing initially to see it. Like, they sort of tried to go there after John blew it or whatever, the response to John blew it. But like, this needs maybe another conversation, and I think the thing that it's like when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. But I think we also try to give, if we really are invested in someone, we try to give them the opportunity to hear us and to change. There's no guarantee they're going to take it, though.
Yeah.
And I think with someone like a mom, as opposed to somebody you're dating or someone you're trying to develop an interest in, right? You have to love the version of them that's on offer and not the imaginary version of them. So it's like, but it's not been laid out for her in excruciating detail yet. So like, once it is, you've given them the opportunity to change and to grow. But if she doesn't take it, it's like, okay, maybe that's something we don't include her in, or she doesn't stand in a wedding because she can't be trusted to show up on time. Those are the sort of commitments that someone who's always late just can't be a part of. But I'm harsh.
Yeah. I mean, she's missed some major events, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Oh, no, go for it.
There's like the quinceañera, the dance recital. I mean, these are like major things that are not repeatable. Like a wedding is, cross your fingers, not something you're going to repeat often. So she's not just missing, family dinner. She's missing major life events.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she has some sort of like worry about the events themselves or how she presents or something. I don't know. There's something going on there. Like, I agree with you, Christopher. I think they haven't had the talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, lots of people have time blindness, like ADHD style time blindness and things like that, which, there's nothing wrong with having that, but you are responsible then for like coming up with fixes of how to make it so that something that's true for you doesn't like begin affecting other people's lives. And I actually think that this was a great idea. Like, I think that they actually handled it really well. given the circumstances. Usually I am all about 100% honesty, but I feel like when it's a day that's really important to you and you know that all you want is to not have to worry about this thing, I think it's really appropriate to tell someone it's an hour early so that they're on time. And in fact, I'm like, the mother should be grateful. She should be so grateful that her son saw the problem that she has, decided to include her anyway, and then did something elaborate to make sure that she was able to be there, which is what they would have both wanted. So I don't think he's an asshole at all. And I think that like now that that has happened, it would be a great pivot to the conversation that they obviously have to have, which is like, clearly this is not going to change. The dad has given up. So like that's her partner who is like, I'm with her every single day. There's no point. And I think that person like really is a good indicator of like, if anybody's tried, it's got to be him, and it hasn't worked. So I actually come down exactly where you did, Christopher, which is that like, there are some people who have a thing and like, you either have to accept them with it or decide you can't tolerate it. But I think something like this, the mom has been like, there's been a demonstration of what has to happen behind the scenes to get her to where she should be. And I think that like, that should be the jumping off point, is like, I know you were really upset, Mom, when you found out about this. Let me tell you why I did it. So like, start with the incident and be like, I just wanted you at my wedding. It mattered a lot to me. I really wanted you to be included. And I did what I had to do to make sure that we both got what we wanted, which was for you to be there. And then you can go into like, and it's a problem because of X, Y, or Z, or here's how it feels. And I just feel like all you can do is be honest about how it affects you.
Yeah.
And then if she still doesn't change her behavior, then yeah, you have to start saying like, okay, well, I have to decide whether it's worth it to me to be concerned about this, decide whether it's worth it to keep other people waiting to have her involved. Because at the end of the day, like, your parent, it's your parent. It's not your spouse or your friend.
Right.
You're not in charge of her. If she is making other people's lives harder because of something she can't control, it's up to those other people to discuss it with her. And you can only say what you can say. But it does sound like she has an actual problem with this. And I do wonder how it's affected her. Like, have there been negative effects? I mean, I feel like someone like that would have a real trouble holding down a job or like doing any kind of socializing that's beyond just like, come over to my house. Like, this has to be something that she is aware of because it's affected her life. And if she's not aware of it at this point, then that is a problem in and of itself. So
yeah,
that was astonishing. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah. I
her
think
lack of awareness.
Yeah. Her lack of awareness. And I will say, I think sort of the universality, we'll go with that being a word, of it is the fact that like, we all have these things that we do that we just don't consciously realize have such a negative impact on the people around us, right? Sometimes it may be being late, it may be, whatever it may be. And I do think that there are people who just really literally don't realize like, oh, that was just that one time, I did it that one time, it didn't really make a big deal, right? Because they sort of block it off and don't realize. I think this is an opportunity, as negative as it may feel, to have basically an intervention with the mom and sit her down and be like, this is an issue for you. This is an issue that affects other people, which you may not be aware of. Here are some things that, possibly like, is this like extreme social anxiety where maybe it is so much, so overwhelming that is her reaction to it, especially if she's somebody who holds down a job and arrives on time for work. Is it, and I can see how much resentment that would cause in a family situation when you're like, well, Mom can be on time for work. Why can't she be on time for this big event of mine? Those types of things. I think it's a situation where the family needs to sit down and use this as a jumping off point to be able to have that conversation about, you may not realize how much this affects other people around you, or you may think it was just a one-time thing, but the rest of us see this as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, but yeah. And I do wonder if she's got some kind of massive social anxiety.
Let me give you an alternative thing. I can't even think of words. What are words?
Yeah.
So
we deal with words every day.
Lateness is an issue on one side of my family with quite a few family members, my dad, my sister, and a lot of it comes down to time management. So like there will be a party or something, an event. And when I have an event, the event is the center of that day or weekend or whatever it is. I'm like, okay, I have that event. I can't schedule anything before or after. Everything is concentrated on that event. Whereas like some of my relatives are like, okay, that event is from 3 to 5. So from 9 a.m. to 2:45, I can do other things. And then and so they schedule all this stuff and nothing ever goes to plan. And then they end up being late. And it happens over and over and over again. So it gets to the point where if I'm inviting somebody somewhere and they have to be there, like a surprise party, we have surprise parties. Like, okay, we know the party starts at 7. We have to tell them to be there by 5:45. And we'll tell them it starts at 6. And we know they're going to show up at 6:30. And we know the guest is going to show up at 6:45. You know, so it's like we just build that into every time and it's just a thing. Yep. So it could be a time management issue where she's like, okay, there's a quinceañera at 2:00 and I can go play tennis in the morning and then I can get my grocery shopping done. And then I can do this and then I can do that. And the next thing she knows, it's 1:30. You know, so it could be that. But I mean, the recurring thing and the fact that it's hurting her kids and her grandkids, they definitely need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I would be curious if it's just family. Like if it's just family events, because that would be a big suggestion that this is some sort of social anxiety around family, around what she feels the expectations of her are in her family.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I agree with like what everybody's saying. I will tell you my personal experience with friends who are late, and I don't have, nobody's as bad. Well, no, that's not true. I have one friend who is as bad as this woman. It doesn't work. Like you give them a new time and it's like the stars align to keep them as late as they always are.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you always, and you get the excuse by text and it's like, I'm so sorry, but there were other cars on the road. And I guess I thought I was just going to float here through Los Angeles. Right. Yeah. And this is LA and they live in Calabasas. You know, it's just like, yeah. So I don't know, like my strategies have never worked, but I think, yeah, it's about talking to them and making it clear how their behavior is impacting. My own personal experience is that I'm not late, but it takes me a long time to get out the door. And I've learned that it's like, I have so many weird anxiety, like rituals. Like I'm at the point where I take pictures of the stove because I'm just so sick of being across town thinking I left the stove on, or candles. Like I'll take a picture of the candle, and people who, because I wasn't late, it wasn't impacting friends of mine. But when I was briefly in a relationship where we lived together, he would be like, what are you doing? Let's go. You know, and it's like, but it was like this sense of, I have to wrap up everything here. Like I'm never going to see my house again. And it's not, I have come to see it as not reality based and sort of anxiety driven. And a friend suggested gently that it was a form of agoraphobia. And I thought, oh no, it could, you know, I thought of agoraphobia. I thought of Sigourney Weaver and Copycat, you know, one of my favorite, where the wall goes like this, but it's like, I'm mostly in this environment. I work from home, which before the pandemic seemed like a blessing. All writers, we would brag about working from home. But, you know, and I'm not really comfortable with an abrupt change in environment. And so I have to, but it was like you said, Rowan, it's like you develop an awareness of that and a strategy to counteract that. And so I'm not late, but I do find myself occasionally rushing on the road in a way that I'm not comfortable with. And I know that the cause is back at home. It's not the other cars, because we all knew they were going to be there.
I think that's so smart, Christopher, because I actually have the exact same problem. And I have at times had, you know, periods of, I guess I would call it agoraphobia. Like I routinely don't leave my house for like a week or two. It's, you know, it's easy. And like when I have plans to leave, I can leave, but I literally will not take the trash out 3 weeks in a row, because 3 Tuesday nights in a row, I was like, I just can't be perceived by my neighbors in this moment. Like I can't even be in the outside. And I really do think it's like, in my home, I feel in control. I feel like I belong here and anything is available to me. And the second I step outside my door, that's no longer true. I'm not in control. I'm at the mercy of the world and other people. And that feels scary and undesirable. And I have definitely like spent until the very last moment that I could still get there on time inside, and then like driven like a bat out of hell. And and like, almost beautiful cats. Goes, this, and it's really it's very interesting, because I think, so I used to teach college in my previous life. I was an academic, and my students had this problem with
Sorry. People who are not watching the YouTube,
everyone.
We're having a rag doll. Is it a rag doll?
I don't know. He's like
a fluffy cat.
Maine Coon rag doll.
He looks like a rag doll. Yeah.
He's the heterochromia, which is very beautiful. If you'd like to show everyone, Jossie.
Oh, he's beautiful.
He's got one.
I think I've seen him on social media. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I feel like I amplified the cat interruption with my reaction.
Oh, that's okay.
No, that's okay. That's what Jasper.
You were talking about teaching college, and you were an academic in your previous life. Yes.
Yeah. So my students, I would hand them the syllabus. We would talk about things, and they would still be late or be unexpectedly behind with things. And I realized that they were optimists about the world. And I don't mean to do this like everyone is like half and a half, blah, blah, blah. But like, I do think that one of the reasons that I am not usually late and that I always get my shit done is that I always expect the worst. I always plan for it. And I always then am fine because I'm like, yeah, I mean, I left 4 hours early because I knew that I had a terrible feeling that something was going to go wrong. And so the fact that I blew a tire, had to put on the spare, had to then go to it, like get emergency coffee and do, I'm still not late. But most people aren't pessimists and don't expect that the worst is going to happen. And so they actually believe that maybe they will make it through LA traffic with no other cars or no traffic. And so I finally started at the beginning of the year or the semester, I would hand out the syllabus and I would say, I want you to pretend that everything that could possibly go wrong in your life is going to go wrong. And I want you to plan your work for what happens if like literally everything gets messed up. Your flights get canceled, your grandmother dies 3 times, your swim team has a meet that you didn't know about. Like just pretend something really bad is going to happen. And I found that the ones who were able to actually start thinking about that were like, oh, okay, I guess I can't just email you 24 hours before expecting help for my paper, because what if you're not on your email at that time? And sorry, this is all a very long story to say that I really do think that there is that like worldview comes into this, and that there are some people who like expect to be able to move effortlessly through the world. And if they can't, it's a bug in the system. And then there are people who are like, the entire world is against me and obviously will keep me from completing my mission, which is to go to the post office. And so I will leave myself 2 hours and whatever can go wrong. And I think some things like there's lots of versions of this. And I would be really curious about the mom, like what her thought process is when getting ready for things, when like setting alarms for things, like how far before leaving does she set an alarm? Is it that she thinks like, oh, it'll just take me 5 minutes to get ready? And if so, then maybe like ask her to time herself. Say, okay, cool, mom, we'll click start when you start getting ready. Take however long you take and then press stop on the timer. And she will see that it took her like 35 minutes to get ready or 12 minutes to get ready. Because even if you think it takes 5 and it takes 12, that's still more than twice that. Anyway, I think that there are like tools and stuff, but worldview and what this person thinks about how things are going to go is like important, I think.
Well, and I think also there's, I was going to say, I love that idea. And I think that would work with like normal human beings, but I'm thinking of my mom again, I love you, but that to her would just simply be, I'm your mother, what in the hell are you telling me what to do? Right. So I think that sort of factors into worldview as well. So I do think that sort of can complicate the situation with this person, is depending on how that child parent hierarchy relationship is and how open the parent would be to that. That's why it would be easier if it was a friend or your sister or something like that. But I do think the fact that it's the mom just adds an extra little complication to it.
I was going to say that worldview definitely like explains why you have people showing up at the gate for the flight, like while they're boarding, and people like me who get there hours before and sit at the gate for an hour or two, like that totally explains that.
This is my favorite example of this, and my thriller writer is going to come out because this is a dark example, but they poll people here in Los Angeles where I live of the question is like, what will you be doing after the big one hits?
Right.
And everybody says, I'll be helping people, I'll be pulling them out from wreckage. Nobody says I'll be dying. Like nobody says I'll be slowly crushed under the ruins of my house.
That was my first thought. I was like,
right.
I will be hoarding all of the food and water. Yeah.
My home will be destroyed. I will be missing an arm. Nobody goes, I think all of us, it's something about the writer's mentality. We go right there because it's like, we have to imagine the worst, even if we're writing romance, we have to imagine the worst case in order to imagine the best case. Right. Yeah. It's like, we have to have and we give our characters that fear that everything will go wrong, even though we are creating a world where it doesn't. But yeah, I think the toughest version of this story in the letter is it's time to plan the wedding. And this takes nerves of steel. And you sit down with the mom and say, we're not going to have you as part of the ceremony because you are not reliable enough. We cannot count on you to show up on time. That's the drama version. But that's a moment where that's like the intervention that you were talking about, Avery. It's like, sometimes that's what it takes to get through to someone.
Yeah. And I think that this is why, like in rom-coms, especially movies, you always have, if there's a wedding scene, you always have this disaster, because those kinds of heightened moments are able to put a mirror up to people to say, like, this is so important that anyone who cares about you even a little bit is going to do everything they can to make it work out well for you. So if anyone does less, how much do they fucking care about you? You know, and I don't even care about marriage or weddings, but like, if I knew someone who was getting married, I would do everything I could, because I know that if you're going to go to the trouble to do all that, you must really, really care about it. And it must be important to you. And if it's your fucking mom and she would have missed your wedding that she was in, I mean,
and I think there's an added thing to a wedding where it's like, no matter what the family dynamic is, I almost made a new word out of family and dynamic, dynamic.
I like that.
Everybody agrees that the couple getting married, or the throuple getting married, are the most important people at the wedding. So you may be the big diva mom every other day of the week, but whatever it is, you've got to stow it to some degree for this one day. And you see who can't. Right. Who can't have it not be about them. And they're usually the people that the wedding couple does not want anywhere near them for just that reason. Yeah.
The one thing in this letter that kind of stuck out besides the wedding was the barbecue, when they said that they had the family dinner and she came late and wondered why everyone wasn't eating yet. Like, she expected to make an entrance while everyone was doing their thing. So
I really honestly think that she is completely clueless on the impact that she has. And I think it is in part because they do all love her, right? It would be easier if they were like some bitter, divided family, but they do all love her. So I'm sure she's like, oh, I'm sorry I'm late. And they're like, it's okay, mom. Right?
Yeah.
It's okay, mom. Yeah. Right? So she does. I would not be surprised if she just has absolutely no self-awareness about how it impacts other people.
I think that's possible, because I am literally daily shocked at how extremely stupid and unself-aware people are. Like, blows my mind on a daily basis. So I believe that that's true, but I do wonder, like, how much of it is that she minimizes the consequences for herself by saying things like, they won't wait for me, they're already going to be eating. It's a barbecue. Lots of other people are there. I dated this idiot who used to be absolutely positive that nobody liked him or cared about him at all. And so he would not show up places, and people would be like, hey, you didn't come to my birthday party. And he would, honest to God, this is his true feeling, would be like, oh my God, I didn't even think anyone would notice that I wasn't there. And I do wonder sometimes if there's this way of like self-abnegation with the goal of total individualism. Like, if you believe that you are worthless and your shit doesn't affect anyone else because they don't care about you, you also let yourself off the hook of ever having to do anything for someone else. And so
exactly.
And I feel like the mom, it's so possible that, like, if she is this kind of, she seems to me a little bit like a martyr. Like, who's going to be like, oh my God, you didn't trust me, when they're missed like everything. So like, I think that's guilt stuff. And I think, like, I guess she could be totally unaware, but if her husband has at this point, like, tried for years and years and years and finally given up trying to get her to be on time, like, they have to have had fights about it. They have to have discussed it at some point. And I just, I think that this mom is like seeing what she wants to see and probably couldn't stand to be the bad guy in any way.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a world in which she's not.
If I were the mom's therapist, which I'm not, I would
I would
ask
bet
her.
$1,000 this person has never been to therapy.
Yeah.
I would bet $1,000. I would be her first therapist, and I would say, is this your way of being seen? Do you feel invisible when you are not doing this? Do you arrive late because even if it's negatively tinged attention, it's still a level of attention you feel you're not getting in any other area? Let's talk about that, because it's making an entrance,
just made
right?
me so sad.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Because
I
like you can't be 45
But
minutes
yeah.
late to a wedding and then think that you're not going to have an impact. That's
Right.
definitely
No.
that's a wedding that
Yeah.
you're in and think that it's
Right.
not going to have an impact. So I don't think this
Right.
is a
Right, especially because she felt that relief, right? The mom was like super relieved that she wasn't,
Yeah.
Right.
which means she was anxious about being late. So there's just a lot
there's a lot.
There is
There's
a lot.
on here.
Yeah.
But I'm still sad the heist didn't go off.
I
I'm stuck on the
know.
heist.
Yeah, the
I
heist.
thought I love that. And the fact that the sisters were in on it, I think would have just been beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I'd also pay money to say that this family is Midwestern, because there's so much Midwestern
think
passive
every family
aggressiveness
is
in here that I identify with. And yeah,
They are not
the fact
Irish
that they
Catholic.
would
I can tell you
rather
that
go
much.
and
Yeah.
steal a framed invitation
Yeah.
than call their mom on her crap is just, this is
Yeah.
like the next episode of Fargo, right? The next
Yeah.
season of Fargo.
Yeah, yeah. And you see pan to the at the very last scene of the show, you pan to the invitation and it's just splattered with blood.
Yes, I think that's perfect. When things go wrong.
And feathers for some reason.
I
And
was like,
feathers.
you guys are not in some big drunken fight about this at the wedding. That's the background that I come from. Accusations
yeah, I was
are
gonna
not
say
being
this would
thrown.
not this would
People
not be
aren't storming out. Like I deal with it there. It's a way of dealing with it, not a good one. But
Oh my
yeah.
God.
No,
Yeah.
no, we just in the Midwest, we just silently seethe.
Well, okay, speaking of silently seething, I just like to, anytime it's my job to make the transition, I just say speaking of, even if they're totally unrelated, and decide that that's a transition. Because
Yes, totally. My hairdresser did that to me the other day. Anyway, yeah. Yeah.
speaking of the polite persons, I don't care about that. Moving on to something I care
Right.
about more, is so this mother has problems being on time, repeat issues. We've all got them. We all know we've got them. What is your repeat issue with writing? Like, do you have a writing kryptonite that is your version of I'm always 45 minutes late, where you're like, next time maybe I'll be different, and then you're like, oh, I wasn't different, of course.
You mean this for showing up for our writing on time? Are we being that literal about it, or is this like a block or an obstruction that
I think a block, an obstruction,
Yeah,
anything
whatever
like
it
that.
may be.
Or like a piece of the writing process or part of a book that just like destroys you every time.
For me, what always gets me is what I can actually accomplish versus what I feel I should be able to accomplish. Right. So like what Christopher was talking about earlier about accepting the person where they are. It's that I still haven't reached that, but being able to say, hey, I should be able to write 5 days a week from this time to this time. And during that time, I'll do the math and I should be able to get to this many words. And that should be what I do. And we all know as writers, there are days when you just stare at your screen or something blows up at your house or, you know, whatever it may be. And it's very rare. I really don't know hardly anybody that's like, oh yeah, I sit down Monday through Friday from 10 to 5 and write my words the whole time. Right. But yeah, no, that's my writing kryptonite is I still plan as if I can do that. But I've learned to like give myself like huge, like 2 to 3 week blocks around when I think my writing schedule is so that I can, you know, catch up on the failures. But yeah, that would be my kryptonite. God, I wish I could fix that. That would make me so happy.
My kryptonite is, so Eric Shaw Quinn, who's right up here. I'm pointing for the podcast listeners. He and I do a podcast together as well called TDPS Presents Christopher and Eric. And we talk a lot about true crime, but we also talk about romance and we talk about writing and our process because we're both writers. He's a hilarious mystery writer, but he has always been about encouraging me to expand what I count as writing, right? That if you are a writer who is making a go at this and you live alone and you need to fix your air conditioning, that's writing. because you can't write in a space that isn't comfortable. Maybe you don't have air conditioning, but that's the example I throw out. We're in a terrible heat wave right now in LA. So maintaining your space, maintaining your life, maintaining your ability to write in the long term is essential. Eric is very smart and spiritual. I am not always. And my writing kryptonite is getting caught up in what I think other people are going to think of the book. And cherry picking things I have looked at on the internet that maybe I shouldn't have looked at, reviews and things like that. And because I go back and forth between different genres, I always have this voice in my head of, you're doing romance wrong. This is too dark for a romance. This isn't going to fit. You're not going to belong here. You know, like, and that was particularly up with Sapphire Spring, which was the second Sapphire Cove novel, because it deals with some pretty intense issues. It deals with bullying and homophobia, and it tries to use a romance novel to get at this question I've always been obsessed with, which is, where do bullies come from? You know, how are true aggressive, sadistic, evil people made? And so
a little tie-in with true crime there too.
Yeah. And I think but I think it gets to this sense of, I always experience writer's block as I have gotten caught up in a fantasy of how the book is going to be perceived. And I just have to step back, and it's like, it's the same principle you were talking about, Avery. The book is going to come the way it comes. It's going to take its own shape, and who I am, I will bring who I am to it in that moment. But there is a powerlessness to the process that is essential to the process. And you just have to kind of let it go and let it come.
It's perfect for control freaks, really.
Yes.
It's the best job if you're a control freak. Yeah.
Right.
Also, it's like, if you're a control freak, you have to at least also be a masochist.
Yes. Right.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Given the chaotic nature of the world.
Mine's similar to yours, Christopher, because especially moving from indie to trad, because as an indie, I can write whatever the hell I want and, you know, figure out whether or not people are going to actually read it. And if they do, great. And if they don't, okay, I have to make some adjustments. But with trad, I made the mistake of looking at what other authors they have and thinking that I have to match that tone or that voice or whatever. And so, yeah, it comes back to like just you getting outside of your head and taking in information that you really don't need to get this book done, you know? And then also,
like someone's got a manual, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, oh, if you don't have this much heat or this many sex scenes or this kind of tone or this much banter, then it's not going to fit the brand of the publisher. That's where I've been stuck. And then the other thing is what Avery was saying, which is like the time. Like, I think pre-pandemic me could blast through drafts much better than I can now. Like now I'm much more, it's like blood from a stone situation sometimes, whereas before I could just sit down and write and things would just fly out of my fingers. And that's been an adjustment and giving myself grace for that change. So yeah, both of those I can relate to both of you guys.
Oh my gosh, me too. I feel like so my girlfriend just moved in with me, and she's a musician, and she used to work full time, but she's recently quit her job to just like focus on music and art full time. And one of the things that she was saying was, oh my gosh, now that I actually have time to do music, I'm so excited that I can practice my instruments and get better, because like it used to be that before she would go to like record a track at night, you know, after her day job was done, and be like, well, I don't really have time to practice this part. I'll just, you know, try to get a good take and then fiddle with it. And she's been playing music for like decades, and you know, is quite good. So she said, like, practice the guitar, practice the piano. And I realized that I never practice writing. I write a lot, but it's writing books. And so I'm like, each chunk of writing is toward an outcome. And I was like, when's the last time I actually practiced writing? And I think it was like college. Like, I don't think I've actually practiced, like sat down and done a prompt or tried to learn a skill or been like, I would like to find a new way to write dialogue or whatever the thing is. And I think that my kryptonite, I have recently realized a new kryptonite to join all the others is like, I get very in the style that's in my head. And then I think that that is the right style to write in. And I don't give myself time or space sometimes to play around with it and be like, but what if I did it this way? But what if I did it that way? I have this like magical, obsessive notion that whatever the first sentence that I write down is will tell me what the whole book is going to be. And I'm like helpless in its thrall. So if I write it in third person past. I'm like, well, I guess this book is in third person past now. And, you know, sure, sometimes I change it, but I think that I have these like all these little magical thinking ways of deciding what is going to be in a book. And they're based in just habit. And so I think that what I actually want to start doing is practicing and being like, I'm going to write something that is comedy today, or horror. I love writing, you know, it's another project that I'm working on. Just practice. I think my newest understanding of my kryptonite is that I've decided that like, since I'm a writer, I just write the way I write, and I want to get better. So I want to practice, and I don't really know how to do that yet, but I'm sure if I Google how to practice writing, the internet will tell me.
Well, it'll be one more hobby for you.
There you go.
I love that all of us are basically like boils down to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Get out of your own way. No. Lovely. Lovely. Love that journey for us. Yeah.
Well, this has been wild. That was, I mean, I don't think I've laughed that hard on this podcast. That was quite a letter. Good job, Avery, finding that one, because that was, I can imagine what the comments were on that one.
That's a movie. That letter is a movie waiting to happen. Yeah.
Seriously. Anyway, thank you so much, Christopher, for being with us. Finally got you here. Yay.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Tell everybody again where they can find you, about your latest project that's coming up. When is Sapphire Spring coming out?
Sapphire Spring is coming out, I think, September 6th. September 6th.
Say,
I don't know. It's too hot in LA to know what month it is right now. September 6th. That's correct. It's September 6th. And every Sunday, Eric Shaw Quinn and I do a new episode of our podcast, which you can find on thedinnerpartyshow.com or on all relevant podcast platforms. And I am currently ignoring Twitter at Chris Rice Writer, but I'm on Instagram at, oh my God, I forgot my own Instagram handle. Hold 1 second, please. I am Christopher.rice.writer. And I'm on Facebook, and I have a blue check mark, and you know, but Instagram is my focus right now. I'm using it to avoid TikTok, which I'm not on. So yeah, that's where I am. And yeah, I just, you know, I won't go into it. I don't want to be controversial, but more power to you if you enjoy TikTok, but I think I'm way too old. So I'm not going to be on there anytime soon.
Well, yes, hold on to your sanity there. But we loved having you. And thank you everyone who tuned in for another episode of Dear Romance Writer. Remember, we really want to hear from you guys. We love doing Am I the Asshole? We love finding letters and other places, but we really want to hear from you. So you can email us at advice@dearromancewriter.com. You can slide into our DMs on social media, send a carrier pigeon, whatever you want to do. We just can't wait to give you more questionable advice from this trio of happily ever after enthusiasts. So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.